All right, agenda, meeting in the Scituate Board of Health, Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, Scituate Library, in the large conference room at 6 p.m. I will take a motion to open the meeting and accept the agenda.
Motion to open the meeting, accept agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so what we have going on here is discussion/vote of property owner request. Shirley Musto and her attorney, Mr. Nelson, hearing regarding State Sanitary Code Chapter 2 violations, 12 Curtis Ave. And you call the meeting, so let's commence.
Okay.
Please.
Well, thank you for your consideration and again your time. I think this is
Could you just state your name and everything for the record.
Robert Nelson, I'm attorney representing the owner of the property. The owner is the Glades Road Trust, of which Shirley L. Musto is the trustee, just to set the record straight. Ms. Musto has served the tenants, that would be Christopher Kelly and Christy Cummings, notice to terminate a tenancy at will on January 22nd, 2018. That was served by the Plymouth County Sheriff. And the basis of her terminating the tenancy was that she is presently planning on doing something different with the land. I'm sorry, with the property. The property consists of one house on 12 Curtis Avenue and 3 smaller houses which are on Seabreeze Lane. She's finding that it's more and more difficult to maintain the properties, manage them. She has some health issues that make it more difficult for her to handle not only the day-to-day operations and maintenance, but any of the stresses related with being a landlord, which being a landlord is not easy. So in any event, she's made a business decision. She's going to sell the property, putting the entire 4 housing units for sale. When she has given the notice to the tenants, Mr. Kelly and Ms. Cummings, it was at that time that she received notice that, or shortly thereafter, that there was an inspection of the property which determined that there were some issues with some violations. So we're here not necessarily refuting all of those allegations, but we believe that because the tenants had not made any claims of any problems with some of these issues, particularly the heat. So I guess during the inspection, the temperature on that first floor was read at 64 degrees. As you know, by your statute, during the daytime it should be at 68. We're not quite sure exactly why that is. I know that the systems have been maintained regularly. I believe that as far as the temperature goes, there's been no complaints to the landlord, and there's been no calls to the servicer, which would be Sean Harris Enterprises. And I believe he is currently working at the property. There has been an incident on the property where there's an external oil tank that had been damaged by an automobile accident, and the oil tank has got to be replaced. Unfortunately, due to this incident, there has been some oil seepage into the ground that Ms. Musto is arranging to have remediated. Unfortunately, in addition to the oil spill, there's also a problem with the chimney, because the oil has gotten underneath the chimney. That's got to be taken down, and she's been trying to coordinate, all of that. There's been some contention between the parties, between the tenant and landlord, and the landlord has been prevented from being able to accomplish some of those repairs. So, again, it is our contention that this request for inspection is based on a motivation for retaliation and intimidation rather than real merit.
Okay. So, sure.
Just for the record, in all fairness to Attorney Nelson, I just want to say that I'm Sean Harris of Sean Harris Enterprises. Everyone else knew except for you.
I'm sorry, thank you.
I just want to be on fair. All right, thank you. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's hear your side of the story, and first of all, I'm just a little curious as to, you know, as a renter, if the landlord had given you know, she has intentions of selling the property, I'm guessing you guys have already started the process of looking for another place and so on and so forth, or?
Just recently.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's hear your side of it.
Do you want to state your name and that where you?
Yeah, Shirley Musto, and I'm the owner of these properties on 11 Glades Road, Scituate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Over to you.
So I'm Christy Cummings Valley. I'm just going to address what a few things the attorney said. We have complained about the heat since day one of the first winter we were there.
And how long have you been living in the
Since July of 2015.
Okay.
When we moved in to the unit, Ms. Musto had said that she would be purchasing new windows and having Chris install them, which we never got. We also have complained about the heat. The past several winters, I've sent pictures to her of the thermostat with the temperature being at 58 degrees, 61 degrees, complained of it being drafty. I believe, I'm not sure if it was the last winter.
Last winter we had an issue with some rodents getting underneath the house, and when I went into the house, we found that all the insulation that sits under the floorboards has all completely fallen down, and we sent Ms. Musto pictures and made her very much aware that that was going on. We were working with her to try to see if we could have mass saves or someone come in and insulate the floors, because we believe that's probably one of the main issues with the colds coming in, and thus far nothing's been done.
So basically, the heating system works,
Yes.
Yes.
which it talks about, but what the problem is the windows are drafty, or like you said, the insulation, which is causing the wind to come up onto the floorboards or whatever.
Is it a four-season house? Tell me, there's not a lot of.
Yeah.
It's a dirt crawl space under the house,
Okay.
and it looks like just from time, all the insulation is
Is there
all.
a bordering, or is it open? You know, how
There
some of
are-
the houses
there's
No,
vents
it's
on
all
the front.
closed
and
in.
closed in.
And the heat, I have the furnace, and the heat goes right underneath the house. It's all like crawl space.
Right, okay.
And the bigger reason of calling the Board of Health out was because we have been being charged for water at the property, and it wasn't supposed to be, and it wasn't included in our rent, in our lease. And after a little over a year of us living there, she said the water bills are very high. She wanted us to start paying water. And we were paying water about monthly, giving her money towards back water bill. And then this past September, she dropped off a bill that was $1,200. And we questioned it because it was outrageously high. and we called the water department to find out why it was so high, if there was a leak, to find out if they were separately metered, and from what we were told, we were not separately metered. And that's when this all began.
And we did have the water department come out, and they did open up the meter, and we shut off all the water in 12 Curtis Ave completely, and the meter was still spinning full speed with everything shut off in the house, which is why you questioned what was going on with the water and why the bill was so high.
When was that?
That
That was
was
September.
I don't know. I think it would have been November. I might have been November.
The time we had them come over.
Okay, so I have a question. Why isn't this housing code issue? Why is this, it goes on us only for the heating?
So the entire state sanitary code, chapter 2, falls under the Board of Health. So the Board of Health is the first step.
A faulty pipe or water meter does not fall in ours, does it?
So this is the housing code.
I know,
It includes everything from top to bottom. It includes light bulbs, it includes plumbing, it includes windows, it includes everything and anything a house can contain, essentially. The sections of 410, or 105 CMR 410, which is affectionately called the housing code, has specific hearing requirements. And Mr. Nelson requested a hearing under the specific code, or section of the code, to be before you tonight. First step is coming before you. If they don't like the decision that the Board of Health makes, they have the option to go to housing court. And if the owner doesn't comply with any issues ordered by myself or you, the board, I can also go to housing court and request that the court force compliance. So housing court would be the next step in this process to any particular body interested in this.
So aside from, and I don't want you to think I'm siding either way, and I don't know how Doug feels, aside from having hard feelings and for issues that may or may not have been resolved, she's trying to sell the property, and I guess you're trying to move out. I guess I don't understand until you guys find a place, just the coexistence part of it, and then go your separate ways.
Because it's a lot deeper than that. We told her we were going to the water department to find out about the water issue. That's when she got mad and said we weren't allowed to do that. We went behind her back, and next thing I know, she's telling us she's selling the property. So it was the water issue first, but then it was she was selling the property. Because
If I can interject, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
So I'd first like to speak to at least my quick responses to the letter you submitted on behalf of Ms. Musto, and then provide a little bit of observation since I'm the one that conducted the inspection. So to Mr. Nelson's point, Ms. Musto was misidentified as quote-unquote owner because the property card did not have the trust from the assessor's office listed as the owner. So that has since been corrected. However, whether you're a trustee or a property owner, Ms. Musto is the legally responsible party for this property. So either way, we have the right parties here. Second, it's not the Board of Health responsibility or purview to get into landlord-tenants disputes about who is issuing eviction orders when. That's a private matter between these two sides. Who came first really doesn't matter under this board's directive. What matters is they requested an inspection under the code, which they have every right to do. I am obligated as the agent for the board to conduct that inspection and determine whether those violations that they are identifying are valid or not. So I went to the property at their request. They identified several concerns. debris under the crawl space that may have been attracting rodents. Yes, there is debris under the crawl space or within the crawl space, but there is nothing that I saw that would be attractive to rodents. Hence, no documentation of a violation associated with rodents. I saw no droppings, I saw no evidence of them, and no attractive substance to them, other than the fact you have a dwelling which is going to be attractive to critters who want warmth.
Right.
So no specific violation there. The Kellys also had questions and concerns about the oil release and the subsequent cleanup. So prior to conducting an inspection, given my background, understanding the MCP and the cleanup process under the DEP, I reviewed the documentation, reviewed the files, reviewed everything that had been submitted to Mass DEP, and the property owner is working under the appropriate steps of the MCP. So hence, no mention in the violation letter that there were violations associated with environmental compliance. I did observe that the windows are extremely drafty. There's a breeze coming in through the windows.
I'm curious, can I just ask a question here? I'm guessing if the thermostat's not satisfied all the time, that boiler must be running constantly, right?
Could be, depends on the temperature outside.
Yeah.
But the boiler is sufficient size for the house.
Yeah, I'm just,
But with the cold that we've
So,
had.
the day I was there, it was in the 40s. The outside temperature was in the 40s, so it wasn't an extremely cold day like we had for that stretch. The outside temperature was in the 40s. It was a nice sunny day. The thermostat was set at 75 degrees. I was in the home for more than an hour, and the temperature was 64 degrees.
so it must have been running.
Oh yeah, the heat was functioning, and that's why you won't see any violations associated with the functioning of the heating system.
Right.
That's why the violations that you see I've identified are associated with non-weather tight windows.
Right.
And I observed the same thing that the occupants described of insulation either completely absent or falling, which would prevent the weather tightness requirement for the property. So to be clear, some of their concerns for me were alleviated by the research I conducted and by the observations I made. Other items were verified by me and thus documented by me as violations of the state sanitary code, hence the letter. I can't see water bills, I can't figure out who's been handing who water bills, and quite frankly, that's not my responsibility. That's a private matter for housing board if they choose to go that route. However, I did reach out to the water department. The water department confirmed that the home is not properly submetered as required under the housing code, and therefore tenants cannot be charged for water, whether they live in any of the homes on Seabreeze or whether they live on Curtis. It is the owner's responsibility to pay for water regardless of how many units are occupied until it's properly submetered according to the regulation. As I indicated before, I did not cite the heating system. And finally, in response to the fourth item, where you indicate the South Shore Housing Development Corp conducted a HUD inspection. They are an agency that has their own guidelines. They are the ones who determine rent subsidies and whether they pay those subsidies. They do not enforce the state sanitary code. Their guidelines are not associated with the state sanitary code, and the Board of Health's inspections and/or state sanitary code violations supersede anything that the South Shore Housing Development Corporation identifies. I discussed this with them. Their inspection, of course, predated the heating season.
September.
Right, the heating season is September 6th, or September 15th, and their final inspection for this particular event was September 6th.
Right.
It was my understanding from my conversation with them that they had done a previous inspection, identified issues or concerns associated with their guidelines, which I did not get into because they're not relevant to us. And then this September 6th inspection was to confirm that their concerns were addressed. My conclusion is that my inspection identified several items in violation of the state sanitary code. Hence my letter to the owner and then copied to the occupants as required.
I have a question. Board of Health. The property got an oil spillage, okay? That's a health hazard. They have children there, they have pets there, okay? Insurance company, the guy that supposedly Harbor House Pizza knocked over the tank, which is being investigated by the Scituate police and my insurance company. Why, that would be more of a concern, and she smokes, flipping a cigarette out there, the oil is still there. And I mean, this should be an immediate cease and desist of tenancy in this property. It's dangerous, there's gas lines.
So there are thousands of spills across the state annually. The State Department of Environmental Protection regulates those spills and the responses to those spills. It is DEP who determines whether there is an imminent threat to public health and safety through the MCP, and the associated release at your property did not meet those requirements. So the actions that you are undertaking under the MCP with your licensed site professional are those that they are the appropriate actions to be taken in response to a release.
I understand. It came up in question this week when I wasn't allowed to tear down the chimney with Matt Murphy, who is John Murphy's brother, the fire chief, if this is a hazard, and the fire chief is going to get involved from here on.
So any concerns that you have about the cleanup process are directed to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection.
But I have to be allowed on my property.
Yeah, this is not.
This is a separate
No, I
issue.
understand, but it's a hazard to live there with that heat.
It is
with
a
that.
hazard, and it needs to be remedied, and we need to have access to the property.
Another thing, Sean Harris has been servicing these properties, I don't want to say how long, Sean, 30 years. All my tenants, not just Sean, and I have receipts here, I'm not just 12 Curtis, I have the other properties, they are to call Sean Harris for service immediately. If the heat is not working, and they have called Sean Harris, and to use Sean, you know, if they need emergency oil, they've been calling Sean. It's because they've been getting their oil somewhere else. And but Sean still is servicing a brand new furnace that's 5 years old, maybe less, that he did not put in. I didn't realize this, that he did not, because he does all the work on the property. So the furnace is new. When I rented this place, there is something in the lease here that stipulates, and they never called Sean to say, hey, the heat isn't working
But
right.
not to interrupt you, but I don't think it's the part of the heat system not working. It's the heat's working, but it's going out the window because it's drafty.
The windows are pretty, this is not on the ocean, it's inland, and I've had those windows looked at upstairs. I had problems, and I replaced all the windows upstairs. The Home Depot came in and did it. Home Depot, they wanted new windows. They wanted another bedroom, which they made without my permission, and made the house into a four.
But I think these are all things of like what we're talking about what you call the meeting for the.
Well, I don't know where the thermostat is.
The thermostat is located in the middle of the first floor.
Okay.
More than 5, it's located approximately 5 feet from the ground surface in the middle of the first
There's
floor.
also a fireplace that's working there. There's also
And that's not a source of heat.
I understand, but
It's
Is
not,
it one
it's
zone or 2 zones?
it's 2 zones.
So there's upstairs and.
Upstairs is fine, there's no issues upstairs.
So, Mr. Nelson, what exactly are you requesting the board to do tonight?
Tonight, I think we're just looking to be able to, with the assistance of the Board of Health, be able to be given access to the property to remediate these issues. We need to be able to get into the property to make sure that the heat is working properly. Obviously, Ms. Musto, she does not want to have her tenants cold, but we have some questions as to what kind of thermostat is in there. We want to make sure that Mr. Harris is able to make sure that the system is working properly in that area. We also need to make sure that Ms. Musto has a very large concern over the oil spill, the chimney, which has got to be replaced because the oil is seeped under, and remedy all of those issues. So we're looking for the Board of Health to allow us to have access to the property to be able to remediate any of these issues. You're correct as far as any kind of tenant-landlord eviction process is not your concern, but we do need to make sure that this is the intention of the landlord, that she is going to continue on the process as far as having the summary process.
So let's be clear. The Board of Health has not documented any issues with the heating system. The Board of Health, and me as the agent, have documented the fact that these windows are not weather tight and that the insulation is not sufficient to allow the first floor to be weather tight. Those are the issues documented as being violations that need to be addressed per this order. So you can review the heating system. We've had no documentation from either party that has indicated that access has not been granted and access is not an issue. So I'm not sure, the board does not grant access to a property. Again, that's between the two of you to provide the occupants appropriate notice to achieve access to do whatever remedial activities you need to do. But if the owner is not refuting the issues with the windows and the insulation, they need to be addressed.
Right. Well, that's the point. Is I think we haven't been able to have access to the property to find out what is in fact going on, because of the limitations on the access and
who's limiting the access? Where's the documentation that the access is limited?
Oh, we got text.
Well, we have some text messages that.
Comments.
I have text messages too.
But again, Jen, you just said that's not our purview.
Right, so we have received no issues associated with access. So the order as it stands now is that there are 21 days to address these issues. There are windows on the first floor and insulation per my order that need to be addressed. And the orders...
21 days, we need an extension. It can't be done.
Why not just go put plastic on it? You can go to
Well-
the depot and get them.
Oh, okay.
No,
Why not?
proper addressing, it is not the board's, it is not up to the board to determine how violations are addressed. However, putting plastic on a window limits access. You know, if you're going to nail a sheet of plastic that's going to prevent, I mean, there's sheets of plastic up already taped to the window, and that does no good. The appropriate measures are either putting in storm windows, because there are no storm windows here, or making the decision to replace the windows. A sheet of plastic is not going to be sufficient to make these windows weather tight, and nailing any type of plastic, thick plastic, would be a fire hazard. So that's not an option.
What about weather stripping? The way I did Joe Spanzola's house.
Well, that was a summertime issue. And that was an issue of raising or lowering the windows appropriately. These windows, in my opinion, are so far gone that you need either storm windows or you need replacement windows.
Joe's house was older. These windows are newer.
We're not talking about Joe's house. Mr.
No, I know. But the thing is, these windows here are much, much newer.
Well, I'm
These
sorry,
were
Ms.
put in
Musto, they're not
19
weather tight.
Around that, well, okay, I can make them weather tight. So you're suggesting I replace all the windows. I don't have the means to do that now. That's why the property is up for sale. And
Then
so,
let me
and
ask
they're
you-
moving out, so I'm saying, no, it's gone.
Then let me ask you why 46 Seabreeze was put up for rent in January.
It's up for sale.
It was listed for rent in
Oh,
January.
I'm selling. I have more than one person. I have it on as the whole compound, and I have individual ones on. And I have customers that want to buy them with tenants in there. They could stay in there if I gave them a lease. But nobody's going to want this problem that's existed here for the windows and all,
Well,
okay?
regardless of who lives there, these violations need to be addressed. It doesn't
They
matter
will
whether
be
the
addressed,
Kellys
but
are
they
here
will
or
be
not.
addressed. You want them addressed, they'll be addressed, but I'm not replacing all the windows. I'll put storms up, but I need more time, is what I'm asking.
So
I
the
don't have a
maximum-
problem.
So the
with-
maximum allowable time under the code is 30 days.
Well,
So that would be what the board would be able to provide you, is
Yes.
30 days.
But you don't have to give me an extension, but because of this oil spillage, I can't put the liability of people going into that property. As it is now, I want everything in writing. Because the contractor couldn't come to the property over there, I need it in writing that they're gonna allow
That is incorrect.
me, the contractors go in there, me to have people come and bid to put on windows. I am not allowed to do this. I am willing to do this, okay? I don't have it devaluates my property, what you're saying. So anybody that sees this is gonna say, we're not gonna give you this kind of money for your property. I'm willing to work with you.
So you don't think you can put up storm windows in a period of 30 days?
No, not,
Because you don't,
not until I have this other problem taken care of. I got to get,
but the
the whole
thing,
chimney's gotta come
what you
down.
have to understand, these are separate issues. We are talking about violations identified by the Board of Health, me as the agent, that need to be addressed. They are completely separate to any concerns that you may have associated with the cleanup process at your property. An oil spill outside has no bearing on being able to fix windows.
You want storm windows, I have no problem. Storm windows are 20.
And insulation.
Insulation, I had to take it down. And there was all, that was done professionally under there by Anderson Insulation. There was a moisture barrier, and we had to take the plastic down, and it needs to breathe. And there's enough heat going from that furnace room underneath there.
The heat is insufficient. It's
And-
not a
Well, then,
68, it's not a
let me get an
68 degree
expert, let me
property.
get an expert on that. I mean,
Let's
Mr. Nelson,
let's do,
please.
yeah, let's do this. Let's investigate storm windows. There's six,
not a problem.
there's 6 windows in the living room, and looks like 3 windows in the first floor bedroom.
That's not a problem.
And we'll have 30 days.
I can't do it in 30 days, Bobby. I've got to go and get a
14
contractor,
windows.
take estimates. I'm just not going to slap anything up and devaluate my property. I mean, I could go and buy $10 storm windows, they have them. I have them at Home Depot, and I could get one of my other tenants to put them up. You think I want to do that to my property?
I just need you to address the violations.
I do, but I need more than 30 days, and that's
The
what I'm
board can
asking
only
you.
grant you 30 days. The code is very clear, it's 30 days to address the violations.
Even though I have a hardship on the property now,
What's the hardship?
the oil. It's
That's,
costing me thousands of dollars.
but that's completely separate than addressing
Two
housing
issues.
code violations. They're two separate issues. Yes, Sean? Sorry.
Lucy, it might be a health issue, all right? If that chimney falls down, and it's, you know, I'm not gonna say it's bad or not, but if the chimney has to come down, that's venting the heating system. If the chimney comes down, there's no heat in the house. You have to put up a temporary chimney, or,
Then Ms. Musto would be required to provide temporary housing.
well, I'm just, there's a little more to it, is, you know, so she's, you know, partially right there. If people are telling her the chimney has to be replaced, it's being used, so I just wanted to tell you that.
And can I just say something? Because we did have people that arrived, was it last week or 2 weeks, last week? That showed up and started the work and started working on the chimney, and she threw them off the property.
The reason why, no, I have to explain why they were thrown off. They started the work there. They weren't the people that I had the contract with. I have chimney sweep. These were laborers that were working for Mr. Murphy with no permit on my property. They were concerned that they were going to have no heat. And I got very upset and said, I didn't know you people were going to take, they called me. And this is 9 o'clock in the morning. I shot down there at 9 in the morning. And I took care of the problem. They called me and allowed me on the property and said, you have to get down there, they're tearing the chimney down. And we're not going to have any heat. I got down there and I put a stop on it because you didn't have any heat.
That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. You told me they were coming. You texted me and asked what time they, to let you know when they came. I texted you to tell you that they were here.
I'm done.
Simple
Yeah,
as that.
they came, and once it was determined that they hadn't pulled the proper permit, Ms. Musto did stop it. So they now have the permit, they're ready to go. We just need to get the confirmation that they're going to have access to the property to do.
And yes, the chimney's
Clean up,
ready
do
to
the
go
chimney.
over.
We will address the other issues. I think once, if we can have the 30 days, we'll figure out how to handle the window issue.
Is the chimney issue, excuse me, the chimney issue from the supposed backing into the oil tank?
Yes,
Okay.
It's an issue, I guess, the oil is
underneath
underneath the
it.
soil.
So the oil tank's
that you
not
can-
up.
So we
It
can,
was
we
outside,
can
yeah.
base, is that what happened?
It knocked it over. It knocked the oil tank over.
There's, the chimney's been damaged, not just from oil.
Yeah.
And so the LSP, Mr. Murphy,
Yeah.
needs to take the chimney down, not, to make sure there's any contamination under it. And based on what I saw when I put the temporary tank in, and I'm not a mason, but, there is a concern there with the chimney, so, and I just want to let you know that it's being used, so it's not that simple. Once in a while, we come across that, someone takes a chimney down, and they don't realize it's being used.
Right.
So, that oil was designed for a chimney.
Escape.
Yes, not a direct vent.
Right.
According to the documents submitted to Mass DEP, approximately 20 gallons of number 2 fuel oil were released back in December. And the oil was released to the ground surface. Ms. Musto hired an LSP of her choice to address the contaminated soil. So she is working her way through the environmental cleanup process per the correct regulations with her LSP.
And that LSP is
Apparently Chief Murphy's sibling.
Okay.
Mhm.
But then you just said that you use chimney sweep.
Well,
He contracted
He
with-
subcontracted with it, but it's my
Oh.
property. And I'm like,
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, I was.
Yeah. so it's like, this is a mess.
So, in order to rectify this situation, Jen, they need to, within 30 days, fix the windows, repair the windows, replace the
And
windows,
address the insulation.
and address the insulation. But at the same time, we have this chimney issue, which could be a bigger problem if the work starts, and as Sean's saying, that chimney is a serviceable piece of the heating system.
Yeah, so it's,
So there's a whole chain of events that can happen here.
so my understanding of the code then would be that if these tenants or any tenants that would be living in the house need to be displaced, they would need to be provided temporary housing by the owner to address those issues. I mean, it's not atypical for home heating oil systems to leak.
Right.
The Mass DEP deals with these on residential properties all the time, more than I think anybody would ever wish. So it's getting, it is, Ms. Musto in her opportunity to get the appropriate professionals in. Doesn't
Oh, I
change
do
the
have a
fact-
vacant house there. If that's what you suggest, they can move into the vacant
I'm not
house.
suggesting anything.
Oh,
I am
okay.
suggesting that these violations need to be addressed within 30
So I
days.
think what we're doing is to keep what Jen's report was, those issues.
I got a question though. She's supposedly cleaning up the oil spill under DEP regulations. What are those stipulations? What's the timeline with that?
That's a great question. I'm going to be fined after 120 days. And it's December 1st to now. The permit runs out. And then I have to start the process all over again with DEP.
Jen?
So there is no permit under Mass DEP to do the work. The LSP needs to follow a document that's about this thick. There are specific timeframes. I believe this was a 120-day notification, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall off the top of my head, but there are very specific timeframes where you either need to close the site, i.e. the remediation has been accomplished, or you need to file the appropriate updates with Mass DEP to keep the process going.
And there's a filing fee of $1,500 that the insurance company will not pay for.
That's inconsequential to what we're talking about.
Okay, but that's...
Yeah, that's neither here nor there, really.
Okay.
Honestly, it's, I'm just, maybe Doug, yeah, I'm just a little confused. I know what our purview is, I know the two things that we have to vote on and make happen or not happen. Obviously, there's some other issues going on here which we have no jurisdiction over.
Or we have not been privy to, and if there are other items to be addressed, we're certainly willing to work with DEP to address them, and address the Mass Department of Public Health regulations side by side with the DEP regulations, but that's not the point of this hearing. We're happy, the Board of Health is
It's
happy.
a technicality because you called the hearing based on the two things that we're called here for now. When there's obviously my read of other issues going on, which are not on purview, and I just want you guys to understand that, a lot of the stuff that's been going back and forth is just not our purview, So, and by them calling this meeting, which had to be what, 9 days or 8
14 days.
14 days, had to be 14 days from when she inspected your residence. They called the meeting in order to refute them. So we are only here based on the two things that Jen has been so eloquent about telling us what only our purview is, no matter what the rest of the issues happening on both sides. So I just want you to know that. You obviously know that because you called the meeting. Now you definitely know that the two things that we have to make a decision on.
Right, I mean, like I just started to say, our obligation is to, address a myriad of codes under state regulations. And if there's a point in time where we need to work with a combination of DEP and DPH to address the contamination and associating housing related needs, we can certainly do that. But the documentation from Mr. Nelson on behalf of Ms. Musto is associated with these particular issues.
I get it. So, again, deciding on depending on which way that this board sways, as of right now, there's still going to be the underlying issues that, we vote for, Mrs. Musto's trust to put new windows in 30 days as required by the code. You might have some other issues obviously going on here. So we're going to do our part, but you guys, these two parties, you guys obviously realize that it's, to use the old adage, it's above our pay grade in some cases. And that's kind of what I'm explaining to you. I'll be honest, I learned some tonight. We don't get many housing cases before us, so I did learn a whole bunch of things, but as Jen keeps saying, there's only a couple of things that we are going to enact upon tonight. So, and I guess you guys, as long as that's understood. And I understand where you keep coming from. You keep, saying this issue, that issue. I understand the issues you're going through. I understand the aggravation on both sides. But as far as we're concerned, we can only vote on the two issues.
I have a question about the thermostats. He changed the thermostats in the house. The thermostats I never had a complaint. I've owned these properties since 1986, and neither has he, saying that there wasn't any heat. So how do we know the thermostats are not the problem? Why can't we remedy it with that? Are you an expert on this? I am not.
I will tell you the windows aren't weather tight.
That's okay, but the thermostat has a lot to do with it. If the thermostat is programmed that it's 75, but to come on to 75 at night and during the day to stay on at 65.
We'll resolve that.
Well, I'd like to get somebody in there to do a service call, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
I think what we need to do
Before I do the windows.
is we're going to ask the board.
I think that's a stretch, to be honest with you. I think that's a stretch. And I don't know his qualifications, but I certainly know this guy's qualifications. And Sean could certainly go in there and say yay or nay. And I really think that's a stretch, to be honest with you. Because if Jen says the windows are drafty, then the windows are drafty. I mean, I believe you, Chris, I believe that.
A licensed professional.
I know, I get it, I get it. I'm just saying, I think it's a stretch.
Okay, that's fine, I'm not arguing, but don't forget what's in the lease there. There is jurisdiction here, I don't know, you're complying with state laws, they need to comply with my contract with them that states that anything that doesn't meet code, that he is responsible for doing. And I have a contract here, meeting with housing tomorrow to go over this. Now, this is ugly.
Well, let me tell you something.
This is ugly.
The state housing code very clearly determines who's responsible, owners or tenants. And it's very explicit as to what the owner's responsibilities are, and I'm sure as legal counsel, your counselor knows what your responsibilities are versus what the tenant's responsibilities are. The two items that I have cited are owner responsibilities.
Okay.
Mr. Nelson, you were going to say
Yeah.
something?
I was going to really kind of circle it all back around. We filed our request for a hearing based on your observations. I think at this point, you know, we're kind of beating the dead horse. We have other forums of more competent jurisdiction where we'll address those issues. But in regards to what we're here before you folks this evening is to ask for your assistance with access to the property. I know, again, that's outside of your jurisdiction, but we need you to reinforce to the tenants that we need to be able to get into the property, to be able to put the windows on, to be able to make sure that...
She keeps claiming, and Mr. Nelson keeps saying that you guys are not allowed them on the property. Is that?
Absolutely incorrect.
Incorrect.
She has blocked us from sending text messages. She notified me, I believe it was last Friday, that someone would be coming today for the chimney.
Yeah.
I said, what time? And will it affect our heat? She responded back that it was supposed to be warm today. I never said she couldn't come. I asked for a time. She was...
Somebody showed up today?
No, no one showed up. And she was on the property Monday. I again asked what time, and she didn't give me an
respond
answer.
to that. So we have Texas here stating that I asked them for the permission and they told me to get a hold of their attorney. And I said, I've asked this attorney, Gary Allen, that was texting me, whom I know very well because he's the attorney that represented Joe Spinzola, will not give me anything in writing that he represents them and why he's representing. So I had no option. Matt Murphy said to me, you either get it in writing that I'm allowed on that property, I'm not going to become a third party to this.
We haven't kicked
And why would I want to
people
go
off the
on?
property. We haven't kicked anyone off the property.
Excuse me. I have to call the police.
So to Mr. Nelson's request, about access, I'm going to read to everybody sitting at this table what the code says about access, so that it's very clear to everyone. It is 410-810, access for repairs and alterations. Every occupant of a dwelling unit, or rooming unit shall give the owner thereof, or his agent or employees, upon reasonable notice, reasonable access, if possible by appointment, to the dwelling unit, or rooming unit for the purpose of making such repairs or alterations as are necessary to effect compliance with the provisions of 105 CMR 410. So that is what the code says about access, so everybody is aware.
Well, they also have a fiduciary to the lease because the state is also on it. They're not the only tenants there. The state is paying half of their rent. So I have to deal with the state on this too. And the state has called her and told her that they would stop the voucher 24 hours according to what, I'm dealing with two codes here. Your code and the code from the housing. So tomorrow I'll go to housing and get everything in writing, and I'm going to present all these facts to housing tomorrow and ask them why they never asked me to put new windows in, because they're very stringent.
So as I
Right to a
indicated,
battery.
so as I indicated to Mr. Nelson, South Shore Housing, acting on behalf of HUD, I don't know if you were in the room yet, because we had started the hearing, but South Shore Housing has their own guidelines, which are not subject to the State Sanitary Code, Chapter 2. They indicated to me that their guidelines are just that, guidelines, whether they provide rent or not.
Okay.
The State Sanitary Code, Chapter 2, and all Board of Health inspections supersede anything that they identify. So their inspections have no bearing under the code that this board is responsible for enforcing. Well, that was something we reviewed. I'm not sure, Mr. Nelson, if she was here yet.
Yeah, what I don't get is, they call Board of Health. I'm a landlord here, I have no rights. You immediately put a citation here without picking up the phone and saying, Shirley, okay?
It's not a responsibility.
It may not be a responsibility, it's a nice courtesy. I was a town official too.
So the lead.
It's a nice,
All right, that's good.
I've had things with her and I need to know.
So here's the thing, Shirley.
I need to know these things.
So I keep referring to the code. The code is what we work from. The code requires that I send you and your tenants documentation of the inspection by certified mail. That is what we're required to do, and that is what we did. I extended the courtesy to your attorney by sending him notice of this hearing by certified mail to ensure that you had the ability to be here and be represented by him without you having to reach out to him directly. So I have done what's required under the code to get you to the point where you are right now here.
I understand that.
I can't call every single person that has an item before the board.
I own a lot of property. It would be nice to give me the heads up so I could have made arrangements, call a contractor, get a price and say, Jennifer, I can have this done
And
by
that's not
such a
what we do,
date.
Shirley. That's not the way it works.
Okay, I'm just asking for some courtesy.
I mean, the big thing that I can see is the animosity is, she stated what it is. They've heard about people coming on it. I think from the guidelines, what I heard from her, that she's asking you what time. You're not coming back. So from my perspective, if you're going to have Sean Harris come there tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, that it's done.
I'm not going to address that. I'm left. He has.
Well, no, I'm just saying, by this, what she just read is what you need to do, is give a time and make sure, okay. I'm just stating, it has nothing to do with us.
No,
I'm just trying to keep good faith.
I understand and I appreciate
She's
it.
asked for written confirmation that the contractors will be allowed on the property, and that hasn't been granted. Going forward, again, we're going to follow the guidelines. We're going to have contractors come and look at the windows. We're going to have the chimney and the remediation, mitigation system on the oil done. And we're going to have to make sure that he's working properly.
And I'm happy, as I've said twice already, I'm certainly more than willing and happy to engage between the DEP regulations for cleanup and the housing code and bring the right people together to have that happen.
Yeah, I don't think we have an issue there. I think at this point, it really is just an understanding of everybody in this room that this is what our plan is, and that if there's any further interference in access to the property, because there have been threats, we have some text messages here, they're a little fuzzy, so kind of hard to follow some of the trail. But we will need assistance on everybody's part to be able to accomplish this. Ms. Musto does not want to run a slum house, and she's got the property for sale. By putting in the strong windows or whatever the remedy is going to be to resolve this, it's going to improve the sale property, value of the property.
And, it isn't their jurisdiction, and I understand that, and being fair to Board of Health, and there are rules and regulations that I have to follow, and I understand that, Bob. So we do what we have to do for the next phase, but if it's impossible for me to get a contractor and to get the material there, I'm just hoping that you would have some consideration if I can't get it done within the 30 days. And that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for an if need be, I'm asking you, because I will get on this tomorrow, okay? And that's what you want. That's a minor thing for me to put up storm windows and have the insulation. I have a carpenter living right on the property, and he's right there. He can do it. He could start tomorrow if I told him to. You know, I don't have a problem with the problem is I gotta get the material there. I gotta get the schedule. 30 days isn't giving me enough time, but that's okay. I'll try and get it done within the 30 days. I mean, you cited these violations, and I'm going to comply. Definitely going to comply. I'm not looking for an argument here, because I have an attorney, okay? And he is much smarter than I am when it comes to these matters, okay? It's kind of hard for me to sit here and you know, not take it personal, even though it is a business I'm running, okay? But I do want you to know I intend to comply.
I appreciate that.
I want that right on record, and I intend to try and get it done within the 30 days, if possible, okay? My health has taken a hit. Before I came here, I was having x-rays and stuff. So, and I'm 70 years old. My body can't tolerate it. That's why I put everything up for sale. I'm done. I am so done.
Chris, you want to say something?
I just want to request that, you know, when the windows and the insulation is done, that they're done by licensed contractors, and that a permit's pulled to have it done, not just anybody coming up and doing it.
So part of the requirement for code compliance, which was identified in the letter, that was that any and all necessary permits be pulled. We coordinate with the building department to make sure that's
And as a homeowner, I can pull it for the insulation, and yeah, I know that.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, make a motion to sustain the orders as issued by the Director of Public Health on February 1st, 2018, following the inspection conducted on January 31st.
So my question before you vote on that is, are you going to sustain the orders with the 21 days or give them the maximum allowed 30 days under the code?
Where are your orders, Jen? I looked in this packet, I don't see those orders.
It's the letter.
It's the letter?
Yeah, it's the first, yeah, it's that.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see the bold paragraph on the third page of the letter.
Yeah.
Those are the orders,
Correct.
where it says, you know, a total of 21 days. So the question is for the board, you know, the applicant here, Mr. Nelson and Ms. Musto, have asked for you to give them the 30 days. If you choose to give them the 30 days, I would recommend that you make a motion to modify my order to give them the 30 days. Otherwise, you would sustain it.
Anywhere between 21 and 30 days, or what is it?
Well, you can pick whatever you want. I picked 21, the maximum is 30.
Okay, so, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
All right, so next motion to modify the order, motion to modify the orders issued by Director of Public Health, Ms. Jen Keefe, on February 1st, 2018, following inspection conducted on January 31st, 2008, as follows. And we are going to give her the 30 days to change the windows, fix the windows, replace the windows, and/or fix the insulation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's it.
All right, thank you.
So she got an extra 9 days.
Thank you.
30 days from today.
Thank you. Weather permitting.
Well, no. That wasn't in.
That wasn't in there.
That wasn't in that.
No.
Mr.
All right,
Nelson,
there's no new business, no old business, no other business. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.